Close your eyes and let yourself drift backward through time. Not just years, not just centuries, but eons. Let the modern world fade away. Let the cities and the forests and the oceans as you know them dissolve into mist. We are going back, far back, to a time before mammals walked the earth, before birds filled the skies, before dinosaurs cast their shadows across ancient plains. We are going back 300 million years to the Permian Period, the final chapter of the Paleozoic era, a world so alien, so different from anything you have ever known, that standing in it would feel like standing on another planet entirely. Imagine opening your eyes on a landscape bathed in the warm, golden light of a sun that looks the same as the sun you know but shines down on a world utterly transformed. The air is thick and humid, heavy with moisture, and when you breathe you can taste it, a strange mineral tang that comes from volcanic gases mixing with salt spray from distant seas. The oxygen content is different here, higher than in your time, rich enough that fires burn hotter and living things can grow to sizes that would be impossible in the world you come from. You are standing on what will one day be called the supercontinent of Pangaea, though that name will not exist for another 250 million years, will not be conceived until human scientists piece together the puzzle of continental drift and realize that all the land masses of Earth were once joined together in a single massive whole. But here, now, in the Permian, Pangaea is real and present, stretching from pole to pole, a vast expanse of land surrounded by an even vaster ocean called Panthalassa. The ground beneath your feet is red, the color of rust, the color of iron oxide baked in the sun. This is not soil as you know it, not the rich, dark loam of modern forests or the golden sand of beaches. This is ancient earth, compacted and oxidized, poor in nutrients, hard and unyielding. And yet, life persists here. Life finds a way, as it always does, adapting to conditions that seem impossible, thriving in environments that would kill most organisms you are familiar with. To your left, rising from the red earth, is a forest, but not a forest of trees as you would recognize them. These are not oaks or pines or maples. These are different, strange, primordial. The tallest among them are scale trees, Lepidodendron, their trunks covered in a distinctive diamond pattern of leaf scars that gives them the appearance of being wrapped in reptilian skin. They rise 40, 50, 60 feet into the air, their tops crowned with tufts of long, grass-like leaves that sway in the wind. But these are not true trees in the botanical sense. They are giant club mosses, relatives of the small, creeping plants that grow on forest floors in your time, but magnified to impossible proportions by the high oxygen levels and the absence of competition from flowering plants, which have not yet evolved. The scale trees reproduce not with flowers or cones, but with spores, releasing clouds of microscopic particles that drift on the wind, settling in damp places, germinating into new generations. Among the scale trees grow other strange plants, giant horsetails, relatives of the scouring rushes that still exist in your time, but here standing 15-20 feet tall, their segmented stems rising like bamboo, seed ferns, Glossopteris and Medulosa, with their large tongue-shaped leaves and primitive seeds that represent one of evolution's great innovations, the ability to reproduce without standing water, freeing plants from their dependence on moist environments. The forest floor is covered in a thick carpet of ferns and mosses, and among them, moving slowly through the undergrowth, are creatures that would seem both familiar and utterly alien to your eyes. A sound draws your attention, a rustling in the ferns, and then you see it, a pelycosaur, one of the dominant animals of the early Permian, though by now, in the middle of the period, they are becoming less common, being replaced by more advanced synapsids. This particular specimen is a Dimetrodon, perhaps the most iconic of all Permian animals, recognizable by the enormous sail that rises from its back, a structure of skin stretched over elongated neural spines that can be 5 feet tall. The Dimetrodon moves with a sprawling gait, its legs positioned to the sides of its body rather than directly underneath, a primitive arrangement that makes its movement seem awkward, almost comical, but effective nonetheless. It is a predator, one of the apex predators of its time, measuring 10 to 15 feet in length and weighing several hundred pounds. Its jaws are lined with different types of teeth, hence its name, which means 2 types of teeth, including sharp canines for gripping and tearing flesh. The sail on its back is not for defense or for display, though it may serve those purposes incidentally. It is a thermoregulatory device, a way of controlling body temperature in a world where most animals are still cold-blooded, dependent on external heat sources to warm their bodies and make them active. In the morning, the Dimetrodon will orient its sail toward the sun, absorbing heat through the thin skin and the network of blood vessels within, warming itself faster than animals without sails. In the heat of the day, it will angle the sail away from the sun, using it to radiate excess heat, keeping itself from overheating. This is one of the first examples of temperature regulation in the fossil record, a precursor to the warm-bloodedness that will eventually evolve in mammals and birds, and it gives Dimetrodon a significant advantage over its prey and its competitors. It can be active earlier in the morning and later in the evening, hunting when other predators are still sluggish with cold. You watch as the Dimetrodon moves through the ferns, its head low to the ground, following a scent trail left by some smaller animal. It pauses, testing the air with its tongue, and then continues, patient and methodical. It is not a fast runner, not a pursuit predator like the cats or wolves of your time. It is an ambush hunter, relying on stealth and patience, on waiting for the right moment to strike. Beyond the Dimetrodon, deeper in the forest, you can see other shapes moving, smaller pelycosaurs, perhaps Edaphosaurus, an herbivorous relative of Dimetrodon with a similar sail but a very different diet, its teeth designed for grinding plant material rather than tearing flesh. There are also early therapsids, the ancestors of mammals, though they are still small and relatively rare in the early and middle Permian, not yet the dominant forms they will become in the late Permian. And then there are the reptiles, early members of the reptilian lineage that will eventually give rise to dinosaurs, birds, crocodiles, lizards, and snakes. But here in the Permian, they are still relatively small and unspecialized, occupying niches as insectivores and small predators, not yet the dominant terrestrial vertebrates they will become in the Mesozoic. The sky above is different from the sky you know. It is hazy, tinged with shades of orange and red from volcanic aerosols suspended in the upper atmosphere. Volcanism is common in the Permian, driven by the tectonic processes that are assembling and reshaping Pangaea, and the gases released by eruptions, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, chlorine mixed with water vapor to create clouds that refract sunlight in unusual ways, painting the sky in colors that would seem alien to modern eyes. But despite the haze, the sun is strong and the temperature is warm, warmer than the global average in your time. The Permian is a greenhouse world, with carbon dioxide levels several times higher than in the pre-industrial era of your time, and without ice caps at the poles to reflect sunlight back into space. The equatorial regions are hot and arid, vast deserts where only the hardiest plants and animals can survive. The mid-latitudes where you are standing now are more temperate, with seasonal rainfall and temperatures that fluctuate between warm and hot. Water is precious here, away from the coasts. There are no large rivers in this part of Pangaea, no vast networks of streams and tributaries like you would find in the Amazon or the Mississippi basin of your time. The interior of the supercontinent is dry, the moisture from the ocean unable to penetrate far inland, blocked by mountain ranges, and consumed by the heat before it can travel more than a few hundred miles from the coast. But there are oases, places where water accumulates in depressions or where underground aquifers reach the surface, and around these oases life concentrates. The forest you are standing in is built around one such water source, a shallow lake perhaps half a mile across, fed by seasonal rains and by groundwater seeping up through cracks in the bedrock. Let yourself walk toward the lake, your feet crunching on the dry soil, disturbing small arthropods that scuttle away into the safety of the ferns. The air grows cooler as you approach the water, the humidity rising, and you can hear sounds now, the buzz of primitive insects, the calls of amphibians, the splash of something moving in the shallow water. The lake is murky, its water stained brown with tannins from decaying vegetation, but it is teeming with life. Along the shore you can see massive amphibians, temnospondals, some of them as large as crocodiles, their broad flat heads breaking the surface as they wait for prey to come within range. These are not the small, delicate frogs and salamanders of your time, but giants, the dominant predators of freshwater ecosystems in the Permian, with powerful jaws and sharp teeth capable of catching fish, smaller amphibians, and even small reptiles that venture too close to the water's edge. One of them, an Eriops, is hauling itself onto the shore, its thick, muscular limbs pushing its heavy body forward. It is nearly 5 feet long, its skin dark and mottled, covered in a layer of mucus that keeps it from drying out in the air. The Eriops is an ambush predator, spending most of its time in the water but capable of moving on land when necessary, though it does so slowly and awkwardly, its body not well adapted to terrestrial locomotion. The amphibians of the Permian are the last remnants of a lineage that was once dominant, that ruled the Earth during the Carboniferous period, the age before the Permian, when vast swamp forests covered much of the land and amphibians were the largest and most successful vertebrates. But the Permian is drier, less hospitable to amphibians, and they are being pushed to the margins, to the lakes and rivers and swamps, replaced on land by reptiles and synapsids that have evolved better adaptations for life away from water. In the water itself, you can see fish, primitive bony fish and cartilaginous fish, the ancestors of sharks and rays, swimming in the shallows, feeding on smaller fish and invertebrates. There are also freshwater sharks, though they are small, nothing like the massive predators that will evolve in the oceans of later eras. The fish of the Permian are diverse and successful, filling every available niche from bottom feeders to surface skimmers to fast-swimming predators. And then there are the insects. The Permian is a time of giants among insects, a legacy of the high oxygen levels that have persisted since the Carboniferous. Flying above the water are griffinflies, relatives of modern dragonflies, but with wingspans that can reach 2.5 feet, the largest flying insects that have ever existed or ever will exist. They are predators, feeding on smaller insects, their enormous compound eyes capable of detecting the slightest movement, their agile flight allowing them to snatch prey out of the air with precision. On the ground and in the trees are other insects, giant cockroaches, some as large as your hand, primitive beetles, ancestors of modern grasshoppers and crickets, and strange, extinct lineages that have no modern equivalents. The insect world of the Permian is rich and varied, and insects play crucial roles in the ecosystem, as pollinators for the seed ferns, as decomposers breaking down dead plant material, and as prey for the larger animals. Sit by the lake for a moment. Let the sounds wash over you. Let the strangeness of this world sink in. This is Earth, but an Earth separated from your time by a gulf so vast that almost nothing you see here will survive into your era. The plants, the animals, the very arrangement of the continents, all of it will be swept away, transformed, replaced by new forms, new ecosystems, new worlds. But for now, in this moment, the Permian is vibrant, alive, thriving. The lake is full of fish, the sky is full of insects, the forest is full of animals. Life has found a foothold on land, has diversified and adapted, has created ecosystems that are complex and dynamic and beautiful in their own strange way. The sun is setting now, sinking toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. The temperature is dropping, and the animals are responding. The Dimetrodon you saw earlier is moving toward a flat rock, positioning itself where it will catch the first rays of the morning sun. The amphibians are slipping back into the water, where the temperature is more stable. The insects are settling into crevices in the bark of trees, becoming still as the cold slows their metabolisms, and in the growing darkness, new sounds emerge. The calls of nocturnal animals, creatures that have adapted to hunt and forage in the night, when competition is less intense and different prey is available. There are early therapsids, small and furry, moving through the undergrowth, their large eyes adapted for low light conditions. There are reptiles, using heat-sensing organs to detect warm-blooded prey. There are arthropods, centipedes, and scorpions, some of them venomous, hunting smaller invertebrates. The Permian night is not silent. It is full of activity, full of life, full of the endless struggle for survival that defines all living things in all times and all places. Let yourself rest now. Let the day fade into night. Let the sounds become a background hum, a lullaby sung by creatures that have been extinct for hundreds of millions of years, but that were once as real as you are, as alive, as determined to survive. The Permian Period lasted approximately 47 million years, from about 299 million years ago to 252 million years ago, and during that time the Earth underwent profound changes. The climate shifted from the warm, humid conditions of the Carboniferous to the hot, dry conditions that would dominate much of the Permian. The continents, which had been scattered across the globe, came together to form Pangaea, the largest supercontinent in Earth's history. And life, both on land and in the sea, diversified and evolved in response to these changes, creating ecosystems that were unlike anything that had come before or has existed since. To understand the Permian, we must first understand what came before it, the world from which it emerged. The Carboniferous period, which preceded the Permian, was a time of vast swamp forests, of giant club mosses and horsetails that grew in wetlands that covered much of the tropical and subtropical regions of the Earth. These forests were so extensive, so productive, that they sequestered enormous amounts of carbon from the atmosphere, locking it away in the form of plant material that would eventually be compressed and transformed into coal, the fossil fuel that powered the Industrial Revolution in your time. The sequestration of carbon had a profound effect on the atmosphere and the climate. Carbon dioxide levels, which had been high during the early Carboniferous, began to decline, and as they did, the greenhouse effect weakened, and the planet began to cool. Ice sheets formed at the poles, the first major glaciation since the late Ordovician, and sea levels dropped as water was locked up in ice. The cooling and drying climate of the late Carboniferous set the stage for the Permian. As the swamp forest retreated, replaced by drier forests and eventually by deserts, the animals that had depended on those wet environments were forced to adapt or die. The giant amphibians, which had been the dominant terrestrial vertebrates during the Carboniferous, found their habitats shrinking, and they retreated to the margins, to the rivers and lakes and swamps that still existed but were becoming rarer. Into the ecological vacuum left by the declining amphibians moved two groups of animals, the reptiles and the synapsids. Both groups had evolved during the Carboniferous, but both had been relatively minor players, small and unspecialized. In the Permian, they would rise to dominance, diversifying into a bewildering array of forms and filling every available niche on land. The synapsids, often called mammal-like reptiles, though that term is misleading and outdated, are the group from which mammals would eventually evolve. They are characterized by a single opening in the skull behind each eye, a feature that distinguishes them from reptiles, which have either no such openings or two. This opening, called the temporal fenestra, allowed for the attachment of larger jaw muscles, giving synapsids a more powerful bite than most reptiles of the same size. The early synapsids of the Permian, the Paleontologians like Dimetrodon, were the first large terrestrial predators, and they dominated the early Permian ecosystems. But by the Middle Permian, the Paleontologians were being replaced by more advanced synapsids, the Therapsids, which had evolved more efficient gaits, more sophisticated teeth, and, in some cases, the beginnings of warm-bloodedness. The Therapsids would go on to become the most successful land animals of the late Permian, diversifying into herbivores, carnivores, and insectivores, occupying niches from the size of a mouse to the size of a rhinoceros. They were the dominant terrestrial vertebrates of their time, and if the Permian had continued indefinitely, it is entirely possible that Therapsids, not dinosaurs, would have inherited the Earth. But the Permian did not continue indefinitely. It ended, and it ended catastrophically, in the greatest mass extinction event in the history of life on Earth, an event so devastating that it nearly sterilized the planet, killing an estimated 90 to 96% of all marine species and 70% of all terrestrial vertebrate species. The Permian-Triassic extinction event, also known as the Great Dying, marked the end of the Paleozoic era and the beginning of the Mesozoic, the age of dinosaurs. But that ending is still far in the future, tens of millions of years away. For now, in the Middle Permian, life is thriving and the world is full of strange and wonderful creatures. Let yourself drift now through the forests of the Permian, observing the animals as they go about their lives. Let the details wash over you, the textures and colors and sounds, the smells of decay and growth, the constant hum of activity that defines all living ecosystems. In the undergrowth, you see a group of small synapsid cynodonts, the ancestors of mammals, though they are still far removed from the warm-blooded, fur-covered creatures that will eventually evolve from them. These cynodonts are about the size of a rat, with long snouts and sharp teeth, and they are foraging for insects, their movements quick and nervous, always alert for predators. The cynodonts are endothermic, or at least some of them are beginning to develop the metabolic machinery necessary for maintaining a constant body temperature. This is a significant evolutionary innovation, one that will eventually allow mammals to become active at night, to survive in cold climates, to outcompete reptiles in many environments. But it comes at a cost. Warm-bloodedness requires a much higher metabolic rate, which means that warm-blooded animals must consume far more food than cold-blooded animals of the same size. The cynodonts are constantly eating, constantly hunting, constantly moving, burning through calories at a rate that would be unsustainable for a reptile. But this high metabolic rate also gives them advantages. They can move faster, react more quickly, maintain activity levels that cold-blooded animals cannot match. And in the competitive world of the Permian, where predators and prey are locked in an evolutionary arms race, these advantages can mean the difference between survival and extinction. Above, in the branches of a scaled tree, a small reptile clings to the bark, its body flattened against the trunk, its coloration blending perfectly with the diamond patterns of the leaf scars. This is an early diapsid, a member of the reptilian lineage that will eventually give rise to dinosaurs, birds, and all modern reptiles except turtles. It is an insectivore feeding on the beetles and cockroaches that crawl across the bark, and it has evolved a long, sticky tongue that it can flick out to catch prey. The diapsid skull has two temporal fenestrae on each side, a characteristic that distinguishes it from both synapsids and anapsids, the group that includes turtles. These openings serve the same function as the single opening in synapsid skulls, allowing for larger jaw muscles and a more powerful bite. But the double fenestrae also provide attachment points for additional muscles, making the diapsid jaw even more versatile. This particular diapsid is small, no more than 6 inches long, and it seems insignificant, a minor player in the ecosystem, but its descendants will inherit the Earth, will grow to sizes that dwarf anything the Permian has produced, will dominate terrestrial ecosystems for more than 100 million years. The diapsid doesn't know this, of course. It is simply trying to survive, to find enough food to get through the day, to avoid being eaten by one of the many predators that would consider it a meal. Let yourself move deeper into the forest, away from the lake, into drier terrain where the vegetation is sparser and the animals are adapted to a harsher environment. The scale trees give way to seed ferns and conifers, early members of the conifer lineage that will eventually include pines, firs, and spruces. The conifers are better adapted to dry conditions than the scale trees, with needle-like leaves that reduce water loss and thick, waxy cuticles that protect them from desiccation. The soil here is sandy and poor in nutrients, and the plants grow slowly, spaced far apart, their roots spreading wide in search of water. Between the plants, the ground is bare, baked hard by the sun, and when the wind blows, it raises clouds of dust that sting your eyes and coat your skin. This is the edge of the desert, the beginning of the vast arid zones that cover much of the interior of Pangaea. The climate here is extreme, with temperatures that can reach 1 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and drop below freezing at night. Water is scarce, rainfall is unpredictable, and only the most resilient organisms can survive. But survive they do. In the shade of a boulder, you see a therapsid, a Dicynodont, one of the most successful herbivores of the Permian. Dicynodonts are characterized by their tusks, two elongated canine teeth that protrude from the upper jaw, and their beaks, toothless structures used for cropping vegetation. They range in size from a few pounds to several tons, and they occupy a wide variety of ecological niches, from burrowing insectivores to large grazing herbivores. This particular Dicynodont is a Dimetrodon, a small burrowing species about the size of a rabbit. It has dug a complex network of tunnels beneath the boulder, creating a refuge from the heat and the cold, a place where the temperature is more stable and where it can raise its young in relative safety. The Dimetrodon emerges from its burrow in the early morning and late afternoon, when the temperature is bearable, to feed on the roots and tubers it can dig up from the hard soil. The Dicynodon's beak is perfectly adapted for this lifestyle, strong enough to break through tough root systems, and its forelimbs are powerful, equipped with strong claws for digging. It is a solitary animal, defending its burrow system aggressively against intruders, and it spends most of its life underground, emerging only when necessary. A larger Dicynodont, a Lystrosaurus, is grazing on the sparse vegetation. Lystrosaurus is about the size of a pig, with a barrel-shaped body, short legs, and a distinctive pair of tusks. It is one of the most successful animals of the late Permian and early Triassic, and it will survive the Permian-Triassic extinction event that kills so many other species, becoming one of the most common animals on Earth in the immediate aftermath of the catastrophe. But that is still in the future. For now, the Lystrosaurus is simply trying to find enough food to sustain its bulk, moving slowly across the landscape, its beak cropping vegetation, its powerful jaws grinding it into a digestible pulp. The Lystrosaurus is a generalist, able to eat a wide variety of plants, and this adaptability will be key to its survival when the world changes. As you watch the Lystrosaurus, you notice movement in the distance, something large approaching across the barren ground. At first, it is just a shimmer in the heat haze, but as it gets closer you can make out its shape, a Gorgonopsid, one of the apex predators of the late Permian, a saber-toothed killing machine that is in many ways the Permian equivalent of the big cats of your time. The Gorgonopsid is massive, nearly 10 feet long, with a low slung body, powerful limbs, and a skull that is dominated by enormous canine teeth, longer than your hand, sharp as knives. Unlike the Pelecosaurs, which had sprawling gaits, the Gorgonopsid's legs are positioned more directly under its body, giving it a more efficient, upright posture and allowing it to move faster, to run in pursuit of prey. The Gorgonopsid is hunting, and it has spotted the Lystrosaurus. It approaches slowly, carefully, using every bit of cover available, though there is precious little on this barren ground. The Lystrosaurus, focused on feeding, does not notice the predator until it is too late. The Gorgonopsid charges, covering the distance in seconds, its powerful legs driving it forward, its jaws opening wide. The Lystrosaurus tries to flee, but it is too slow, too heavy, and the Gorgonopsid is on it before it has taken more than a few steps. The saber teeth sink into the Lystrosaurus's neck, severing arteries, and the herbivore goes down, its legs buckling, its life draining away in seconds. The Gorgonopsid feeds quickly, tearing meat from bone, consuming as much as it can before scavengers arrive. Already you can see shapes circling in the sky, archosaurs, the ancestors of crocodiles and dinosaurs, gliding on thermals, waiting for their chance to descend and claim whatever the Gorgonopsid leaves behind. This is the Permian, a world of struggle and survival, of predators and prey, of life finding a way in the harshest of environments. It is a world without mercy, without sentiment, a world governed by the simple laws of evolution: eat or be eaten, adapt or die, survive long enough to reproduce, or be erased from the fossil record. Let the scene fade now. Let the Gorgonopsid and its kill recede into the distance. Let yourself drift across the landscape, over mountains and valleys, across rivers and lakes, across the vast interior deserts of Pangaea, observing but not interfering, witnessing a world that has been lost to time. The Permian is a world in transition, a world caught between the ancient ecosystems of the Carboniferous and the modern ecosystems that will emerge in the Triassic. It is a world where amphibians still linger in the wetlands but are no longer dominant. A world where reptiles and synapsids are diversifying and competing for supremacy. A world where the first conifers are spreading across the highlands, replacing the ancient scale trees and seed ferns. A world where the stage is being set for the great extinction that will end it all, that will wipe the slate clean and force evolution to start over. But that extinction is still tens of millions of years away. For now, the Permian world endures, and life, in all its strange and wonderful diversity, continues. Rest now. Breathe slowly. Let your mind drift across this ancient landscape, across forests and deserts, across lakes and rivers, across a world that existed long before humans, long before mammals, long before dinosaurs. This is deep time, and in deep time nothing is permanent, nothing is eternal. Everything changes. Everything evolves. Everything eventually disappears, replaced by new forms, new species, new worlds. The Permian will end, the great extinction will come. But that is a story for later. For now, let yourself rest in this moment, in this world, in this time when the earth was young and the future was unwritten and anything seemed possible. The night deepens. The stars wheel overhead, the same stars that will shine on dinosaurs, on mammals, on humans, on whatever comes after humans. The earth turns. Time passes. And in the darkness, the animals of the Permian go about their lives, hunting and feeding and reproducing, unaware that they are living in the twilight of an era, that their world is already beginning to change in ways that will prove fatal to most of them. But for now, they live, and that is enough. Sleep now. Let the Permian fade into dreams. Let the strange creatures and ancient forests become shadows in your mind. Tomorrow, when you wake, you will be back in your own time, in your own world. But for tonight, you have walked in a world that vanished 205 million years ago, a world that existed only once and will never exist again. The Permian is gone, but its memory remains, preserved in stone, in fossils, in the layers of rock that tell the story of the Earth's deep past. And as long as there are people willing to listen, willing to learn, willing to imagine what that world was like, the Permian will never truly die. Wake gently from your rest in the early Permian, and let us move forward now through time, not in leaps of millions of years, but in the slow, steady flow of geological epochs. We are leaving behind the world of Dimetrodon and the early Synapsids, moving into the middle and late Permian, a time when the Earth will undergo transformations both subtle and profound, when new creatures will emerge and old lineages will fade, when the climate will shift and the continents will continue their slow dance across the surface of the planet. It is now approximately 270 million years ago, and Pangaea has fully formed. All of Earth's land masses have collided and merged into a single supercontinent that stretches from the North Pole to the South Pole, surrounded by the global ocean of Panthalassa. This unification of land has had profound effects on climate, ocean currents, and the evolution of life. With all the continents joined together, there are no longer multiple ocean basins to distribute heat around the globe. The ocean currents that once moderated temperatures have been disrupted, and the interior of Pangaea, far from any ocean, has become a harsh, arid wasteland. The climate is characterized by extremes, blistering heat in the interior deserts, seasonal monsoons along the coasts, and ice caps at the poles that wax and wane with the glacial cycles. Let yourself stand now on a different part of Pangaea, far from the forests and lakes of the early Permian. You are in what will one day be called Russia, in a region that will be known as the Karoo Basin, though these names mean nothing in the Permian. This is a highland area, cooler than the equatorial regions, with seasonal rainfall and a vegetation cover that is more diverse than the deserts of the interior but less lush than the coastal forests. The landscape here is dominated by conifers, early ancestors of the pines and spruces that will cover the northern forests of your time. These conifers have evolved needle-like leaves and thick bark that protects them from fire, from frost, from the depredations of herbivores. They grow in scattered groves, interspersed with seed ferns and cycads, primitive relatives of palms that will become more common in the Mesozoic. The ground is covered in a thick layer of leaf litter, and beneath it, the soil is richer than in the deserts, enriched by the decomposition of organic matter and the work of soil fungi and bacteria. This richer soil supports a more diverse community of plants, which in turn supports a more diverse community of animals. And the animals here are different from those you saw in the early Permian. The Paleontology, the Dimetrodon and Edaphosaurus are gone, extinct, replaced by more advanced Synapsids that have evolved more efficient body plans, more sophisticated metabolisms, and in some cases the beginnings of fur. In a clearing among the conifers, you see a herd of Dinosaurs, but these are not the small, burrowing Dimetrodon of the deserts. These are Canamaria, large herbivores the size of modern cattle, with barrel-shaped bodies, thick limbs, and massive skulls, equipped with powerful beaks and small tusks. They are grazing on the low-growing vegetation, their beaks cropping ferns and cycad fronds, their jaws grinding the tough plant material into a digestible pulp. Canamaria is a social animal, living in herds that can number in the dozens, and the herd structure provides protection from predators. The adults form a defensive circle around the young when danger threatens, and their size and their tusks make them formidable opponents for all but the largest predators. As you watch the Canamaria herd, you hear a sound, a low growl that sends a shiver down your spine. The Dinosaurs hear it too, and they become alert, their heads rising, their eyes scanning the tree line. And then you see it, emerging from the shadows beneath the conifers. A gorgonopsid, but larger than the one you saw hunting in the desert. A true giant, perhaps 12 feet long and weighing half a ton. This is Inostrandsevere, one of the largest and most fearsome predators of the late Permian. A creature that combines the power of a bear with the killing tools of a saber-toothed cat. Its body is long and low, its legs powerful and positioned more upright than those of earlier synapsids, giving it both speed and agility. Its skull is massive, nearly 2 feet long, and dominated by saber-like canine teeth that curve downward from the upper jaw, each one 6 inches long and sharp as a razor. Inostrandsevere is an apex predator at the top of the food chain, feared by every other animal in its ecosystem. It hunts large prey, Dinosaurs and Paleosaurs, massive reptilian herbivores that can weigh a ton or more, and it is capable of bringing them down through a combination of power, speed, and those devastating saber teeth. The gorgonopsid approaches the Canamaria herd slowly, carefully, assessing the situation. The adults have formed their defensive circle, and they are alert, ready to fight. The gorgonopsid is hungry, but it is not desperate. It knows that attacking a full-grown Canamaria is dangerous, that those beaks can deliver crushing bites, and those tusks can gore, and a serious injury could be fatal for a predator that depends on its physical capabilities to hunt. So the gorgonopsid waits, patient, watching for an opportunity, and then it comes. One of the younger Canamaria, not yet fully grown, strays too far from the herd, distracted by a particularly attractive patch of ferns. The gorgonopsid sees its chance and moves, accelerating from a walk to a run in seconds, covering the ground with powerful strides. The young Canamaria sees the predator and tries to flee, calling out in alarm, but it is too late. The gorgonopsid is faster, more agile, and it closes the distance in moments, leaping onto the Dinosaur's back, its claws digging into flesh, its weight pulling the herbivore down. The saber teeth find the neck, piercing through thick skin and muscle, severing the carotid artery in the windpipe, and the Canamaria dies quickly, its struggles ceasing within seconds. The herd does not come to the rescue. They watch, alert and nervous, but they do not approach. The young one is lost, and there is nothing to be done. The gorgonopsid feeds, and the herd moves on, leaving the kill site behind, resuming their grazing a safe distance away. This is the way of the Permian, the way of all ecosystems in all times. Life feeds on life. Death is the price of survival, and the wheel turns. Generation after generation, predator and prey locked in an eternal dance. Let yourself move forward in time again, deeper into the late Permian, to a period around 255 million years ago, just a few million years before the end. The world has continued to change, the climate becoming hotter and drier in many regions, the deserts expanding, the forest retreating to the coasts and the highlands. There are dozens of species ranging in size from a few ounces to several tons, filling every available ecological niche. There are herbivores like the Dinosaurs and the Paleosaurs, massive armored reptiles with bony plates embedded in their skin. There are carnivores like the gorgonopsids and the early cynodonts, sleek and agile predators with sharp teeth and keen senses. There are insectivores and omnivores, burrowers and climbers, solitary hunters and social grazers. The therapsids have evolved remarkable adaptations. Some have developed secondary palates, bony structures that separate the nasal passages from the mouth, allowing them to breathe while they eat, an adaptation that will eventually be inherited by mammals. Some have evolved different types of teeth, incisors for nipping, canines for stabbing, molars for grinding, a heterodont dentition that allows for more efficient processing of food. Some have developed more efficient gaits, with legs positioned directly under the body rather than sprawled to the sides, allowing for faster, more sustained locomotion. And some, the cynodonts in particular, have begun to evolve fur. Not the thick, insulating fur of mammals, but a sparse covering of hair-like filaments that may have served to provide some insulation, to reduce water loss, or to serve as sensory organs. This is one of the first steps on the long evolutionary journey that will lead, eventually, to true mammals, to creatures with complex brains and sophisticated behaviors, and the ability to nurse their young with milk. But the cynodonts of the late Permian are still small, still relatively rare, still minor players in ecosystems dominated by larger therapsids and by the increasingly diverse reptiles. They are survivors, these cynodonts, tenacious and adaptable, and they will need those qualities in the years to come because the world is about to change in ways that will prove fatal to most of the life on Earth. You are standing now on the coast of Panthalassa, on a beach of black volcanic sand that stretches for miles in both directions. The ocean is calm, the waves lapping gently at the shore, and the air is warm and humid, thick with salt spray. Behind you, a forest of conifers and cycads rises up the slopes of a volcanic mountain, its peak hidden in clouds. This is Siberia, or rather, the region that will one day be Siberia. Though in the late Permian it is a tropical paradise, far removed from the frozen wasteland it will become in your time. The ocean here is teeming with life, fish and sharks and marine reptiles, early ancestors of the ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs that will dominate Mesozoic seas. There are corals and sponges, mollusks and echinoderms, a diversity of life that rivals any modern coral reef. But beneath this paradise, deep in the Earth's crust, something is stirring. Magma is rising, forced upward by the movements of tectonic plates, by the stresses and strains of Pangaea's formation. The magma is approaching the surface, melting through the overlying rock, creating vast chambers of molten stone beneath the crust. And then, around 252 million years ago, the magma breaks through. It does not erupt in a single catastrophic explosion like the eruptions that will destroy Pompeii or bury the dinosaurs. Instead, it pours out in vast floods of lava, eruptions that last for thousands of years, that cover an area the size of Europe in molten rock, that release unimaginable quantities of gases into the atmosphere. This is the beginning of the Siberian Traps, one of the largest volcanic events in Earth's history, and it will trigger the Permian-Triassic extinction event, the Great Dying, the catastrophe that will end the Paleozoic era and kill more than 90% of all species on Earth. But the extinction does not happen all at once. It unfolds over hundreds of thousands of years, possibly as long as 1,000,000 years, a slow, agonizing death for the ecosystems of the Permian. The volcanic eruptions release sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and other gases into the atmosphere. And these gases have profound effects on the climate and the chemistry of the ocean. The sulfur dioxide reacts with water vapor to form sulfuric acid, which falls as acid rain, poisoning freshwater ecosystems, damaging plants, stripping nutrients from the soil. The carbon dioxide accumulates in the atmosphere, driving up global temperatures through the greenhouse effect, causing the ice caps to melt, raising sea levels, disrupting ocean currents. As the carbon dioxide dissolves in the ocean, it forms carbonic acid, lowering the pH of seawater, making it more acidic. This ocean acidification makes it difficult for organisms with calcium carbonate shells or skeletons, corals, mollusks, echinoderms to build and maintain their structures, and many species simply dissolve, their shells eaten away by the acidic water. The warming climate also reduces the amount of oxygen that can dissolve in seawater, creating vast dead zones where nothing can survive. The ocean currents slow and then stop, the water becoming stratified, with warm, oxygen-poor water at the surface and cold, stagnant water at the depths. In these dead zones, bacteria thrive, bacteria that produce hydrogen sulfide, a toxic gas that bubbles up from the ocean and poisons the atmosphere. The combination of acid rain, ocean acidification, global warming, oxygen depletion, and hydrogen sulfide poisoning creates a cascade of environmental catastrophes, each one reinforcing the others, each one making survival more difficult for the life forms that have evolved in the stable conditions of the earlier Permian. On land, the effects are equally devastating. The acid rain kills forests, stripping the landscape of vegetation, exposing the soil to erosion. The warming temperatures turn temperate regions into deserts, and the deserts, already harsh, become uninhabitable. The seasonal monsoons become more intense and more unpredictable, bringing floods and droughts in rapid succession, destroying habitats, driving species to extinction. The herbivores, dependent on plants for food, are among the first to suffer. As the vegetation dies, they starve, and their populations crash. And as the herbivore populations crash, the carnivores that depend on them for food also begin to die, creating a cascade of extinctions that ripples through the food web. Let yourself stand now in the dying world of the late Permian, perhaps 551 million years ago, just a million years after the Siberian traps began to erupt. The landscape is desolate, a wasteland of bare rock and dead trees, the soil washed away by floods, the air thick with volcanic ash and the smell of sulfur. The forest that once covered this region is gone, reduced to scattered stumps and fallen logs, their bark stripped away, their wood rotting in the acid rain. The lake that once supported a thriving community of fish and amphibians is dry, its bed cracked and barren, littered with the bones of the animals that died when the water disappeared. And the animals, the great herds of Dinosaurs, the packs of Gorgonopsids, the schools of temnospondyls, are gone. Not all at once, not in a single catastrophic event, but slowly, gradually, as their habitats disappeared, as their food sources vanished, as the environmental conditions became too extreme for them to survive. You see a few survivors struggling to stay alive in the ruins of their world. A small cynodont, perhaps a member of the genus Thrinaxodon, emerges from a burrow, its eyes scanning the barren landscape for food. It is thin, emaciated, its ribs visible beneath its sparse covering of fur. It finds a few insects, beetles that have survived by burrowing deep into the soil, and it eats them quickly, ravenously, knowing that it may be days before it finds food again. The cynodont is one of the lucky ones. It is small, adaptable, capable of surviving on a wide variety of foods, and it has learned to burrow, to retreat underground when conditions on the surface become unbearable. These traits will allow it to survive the extinction event, to persist through the early Triassic, and to give rise, eventually, to the mammals that will inherit the Earth after the dinosaurs are gone. But for now, survival is a day-to-day struggle, a matter of finding enough food, enough water, enough shelter to make it through one more night, one more day, one more season. In the distance, you see movement, something large, and for a moment your heart quickens, thinking it might be a Gorgonopsid, one of the great predators of the Permian. But as the shape comes closer, you realize it is a Lystrosaurus, the same genus of Dicenodon you saw earlier, grazing in the desert. The Lystrosaurus is thin, weakened by hunger, its tusks worn and cracked, its skin covered in sores from the acid rain. But it is alive, and it is moving with purpose, heading toward a distant water source, following ancient instincts that tell it where to find the resources it needs to survive. Lystrosaurus will be one of the most successful survivors of the Permian-Triassic extinction event. It is adaptable, capable of eating a wide variety of plants, capable of digging burrows to escape the heat and the cold, capable of surviving in environments that would kill more specialized species. In the early Triassic, Lystrosaurus will become the most common land animal on Earth, making up perhaps 95% of all terrestrial vertebrates, a testament to the power of adaptability in the face of catastrophe. But that success is still in the future. For now, the Lystrosaurus is simply trying to survive, to find food and water, to avoid predators, to live long enough to reproduce and pass its genes on to the next generation. The sun is setting now, sinking toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and orange, colors that are intensified by the volcanic aerosols suspended in the atmosphere. The temperature drops rapidly, as it always does in desert climates, and the few surviving animals retreat to burrows, to caves, to any shelter they can find. The night comes, and with it, a silence that is profound and unsettling. There are no insect sounds, no calls of amphibians, no howls of predators. The ecosystems that produce those sounds are gone, destroyed by the environmental catastrophes unleashed by the Siberian traps. The world is dying, and the silence is the sound of that death. But even in the midst of catastrophe, life persists. Deep in burrows, in caves, in the crevices of rocks, animals are sleeping, conserving energy, waiting for conditions to improve. In the ocean, in the deepest, coldest waters where the effects of the extinction are less severe, fish and invertebrates are surviving, clinging to existence. And on the surface, hardy plants, survivors of previous extinction events, are beginning to recolonize the barren landscapes, their seeds blown on the wind, finding purchase in cracks in the rock, sending down roots, beginning the slow process of rebuilding the ecosystems that were destroyed. The Permian-Triassic extinction event will last for hundreds of thousands of years, but it will not last forever. Eventually, the volcanic eruptions will slow and then stop. The gases they released will be absorbed by the ocean and by weathering rock. The climate will begin to stabilize, and life, tenacious and adaptable, will begin to recover. But the world that emerges from the extinction will be very different from the world that went into it. The great Therapsid dynasties, the Dinosaurs and the Gorgonopsids and the Periosaurs, will be decimated, their diversity reduced to a handful of surviving species. The amphibians, already in decline, will be pushed even further to the margins. The forests will take millions of years to recover, and when they do, they will be dominated by different plants, by conifers and cycads, and eventually by flowering plants. And into the vacuum left by the extinction of the Therapsids will move the reptiles, the Diapsids, the ancestors of the dinosaurs. In the Triassic period, the age that follows the Permian, the reptiles will diversify and evolve, filling the ecological niches left empty by the extinct Therapsids, growing to enormous sizes, developing new adaptations, new behaviors, new ways of life. The Permian will be over. The age of the Synapsids will be over, and the age of the dinosaurs will begin. But that is a story for another time. For now, let yourself rest in the silence of the dying Permian, in the stillness of a world in transition. Let the images fade, the forests and the deserts, the lakes and the oceans, the animals struggling to survive in a world that is no longer hospitable to them. The Permian taught us many things. It taught us that even the most successful lineages, the most dominant species, can be swept away by environmental changes they cannot control. It taught us that adaptability is more important than specialization, that the species that survive are not always the strongest or the smartest, but the most flexible, the most capable of adjusting to new conditions. It taught us that the Earth is not static, that climate can change, that continents can move, that ecosystems can collapse. And it taught us that life, despite all the catastrophes it has endured, is resilient, capable of surviving, of adapting, of evolving into new forms that are suited to the new world that emerges from the ashes of the old. The Permian was a time of giants, of strange and wonderful creatures that have no modern equivalents. It was a time of forests unlike any that exist today, of deserts that stretched for thousands of miles, of oceans teeming with life. It was a time when the earth was young, when the future was unwritten, when anything seemed possible. And it was a time that ended in catastrophe, in the greatest mass extinction event in the history of life on Earth, an event so devastating that it nearly sterilized the planet, that came close to ending the experiment of complex life altogether. But life survived. A handful of species, scattered across the continents, living in burrows and caves in deep ocean waters, managed to hold on, to endure through the worst of the extinction, to emerge into the Triassic and begin the long process of rebuilding the world. And from those survivors, from the small cynodonts and the hardy Lystrosaurus, from the fish and the insects and the plants, would come all the diversity of the Mesozoic and the Cenozoic, all the dinosaurs and the mammals and the birds, all the ecosystems that would cover the Earth for the next 225 million years, all the way down to you, sitting here, listening to this, a product of that unbroken chain of survival and adaptation and evolution. The Permian is gone, but its legacy remains. In the fossils scattered across the continents, in the coal seams that were formed from the forests of the Carboniferous, in the limestone cliffs that were once coral reefs, in the very rocks beneath your feet. The Permian is part of the Earth's history, part of the story of life, and as long as there are people willing to study that history, to learn from it, to understand the forces that have shaped our planet, the Permian will never be truly forgotten. Let yourself drift now into sleep, into dreams. Let the images of the Permian fade into the background, becoming memories. Echoes of a world that existed long before you were born, long before your species existed, long before the first mammals walked the Earth. The Therapsids are at rest, their bones scattered across ancient lake beds and river valleys, waiting to be discovered, waiting to tell their stories. The Gorgonopsids sleep, their saber teeth preserved in stone, testament to a time when Synapsids ruled the Earth. The Dicynodonts graze in memory, their tusks and beaks frozen in rock, reminders of the diversity of life that once existed. The Permian forests are silent now, their scale trees and seed ferns long since turned to coal, their seeds and pollen preserved in amber, tiny capsules of time that allow us to glimpse what the world was like 300 million years ago. The oceans of the Permian are still, the reefs dead, their creatures extinct, but their fossils remain, embedded in limestone, telling us about the creatures that swam in those ancient seas, about the ecosystems that thrived and then collapsed, about the resilience of life in the face of catastrophe. Rest now, breathe slowly, let your mind quiet. The Permian is over, the extinction has passed, the world has recovered, evolved, changed into something new. And you, listening to this, are part of that new world, a descendant of the survivors, a link in the chain that connects the present to the deep past. The stars wheel overhead, the same stars that shone on the Permian world, the same stars that will shine long after humanity is gone. The Earth turns, patient and enduring, carrying its cargo of life through space and time. And in the darkness, the memory of the Permian persists, a reminder that nothing lasts forever, that all things change, that life, despite all the challenges it faces, finds a way to continue. The Permian was real. The animals were real. The forests and the deserts and the oceans were real. They existed, they lived, they struggled and survived and reproduced, and then they died and the world moved on without them. But they are not forgotten. We remember them. We study them. We try to understand them, to learn from their successes and their failures, to apply those lessons to our own time, our own world, our own struggles. Permian teaches us humility. It teaches us that we are not the first to walk this earth, that we are not the most important, that we are simply one more species in a long line of species that have come and gone. It teaches us that the earth was here long before we arrived and will be here long after we are gone, that our time on this planet is brief, a flicker in geological time, and that what we do with that time matters. The Permian teaches us about change, about the inevitability of change, about the fact that the world we know will not last forever, that climate will shift, that ecosystems will collapse, that species will go extinct. But it also teaches us about resilience, about the ability of life to survive, to adapt, to evolve into new forms that are suited to new conditions. And perhaps most importantly, the Permian teaches us about ourselves. We are the descendants of the survivors of the Permian-Triassic extinction event. Our mammalian ancestors, the small synodonts that huddled in burrows while the world died around them, managed to survive, to hold on through the worst environmental catastrophe in Earth's history, and to emerge into the Triassic, where they would continue to evolve slowly, patiently, until millions of years later, they would give rise to the mammals, and then to the primates, and then to humans. We carry the legacy of the Permian in our genes, in our DNA, in the very structure of our bodies. The bones of our skull, the teeth in our jaws, the way we breathe, the way we regulate our body temperature, all of these are inheritances from the Therapsids, from the Synapsids, from the creatures that lived and died in the Permian world. We are connected to that ancient world by an unbroken chain of ancestry, a chain that stretches back through the mammals and the synodonts and the Therapsids and the Pelecosaurs, all the way back to the earliest Synapsids, the first animal to evolve the single temporal fenestra that defines our lineage. The Permian is not just history, it is our history. It is part of who we are, part of where we came from, part of the story of how we came to be. And understanding the Permian, learning about its ecosystems and its animals and its catastrophes, helps us understand ourselves, our place in the world, our relationship to the deep past and the uncertain future. So sleep now with the knowledge that you are part of something larger than yourself, something that extends back through hundreds of millions of years, through countless generations, through all the struggles and adaptations and extinctions that have shaped the history of life on Earth. Sleep and know that the Permian world, though long gone, is not lost. It lives on in the rocks, in the fossils, in the stories we tell, and in you, a living, breathing link to a time when the Earth was different, when the animals were different, when the future was unwritten and anything seemed possible. The night is deep. The Earth turns through space, carrying its cargo of life, its memories of worlds that were and worlds that might have been. And somewhere in the darkness, the Permian sleeps, its creatures at rest, its story told, its legacy preserved in stone and bone, and the genetic code of every living thing that exists today. Good night. Rest well. And when you wake, remember that you are part of a story that is older than mountains, deeper than oceans, longer than you can imagine. A story that began billions of years ago, and that continues still, with you as one of its characters, one of its participants, one of its inheritors. The Permian is gone, but life continues, and that is the greatest lesson of all. Sleep now. The journey through deep time is complete. The Permian has been witnessed, remembered, honored. And in your sleep, may you dream of ancient forests and strange creatures, of a world that was and a world that might have been, of the endless dance of evolution and extinction that defines all life on Earth. The Permian awaits, preserved in stone, waiting for those who have the patience to listen, the curiosity to learn, the imagination to see a world that vanished 252 million years ago, but that, in memory and in fossil, will never truly die. Rest, dream, remember. Good night.